What's up guys, welcome back to Gamers Be Like, I'm Bond, and I'm gonna run down my top 7 games of 2018. So I'm a little bit late with this, we're already over a week into 2019, but I wanted to try and think of a slightly different way of doing my list, because obviously there's lots and lots of Game of the Year lists out there, and I'm sure many people you already know all the big hitters of the year, what people like. There's a really good list over on Eurogamer that had like top 50 that I found some games that I need to check out. But anyway, what I've done is I've decided to make my list the top 7 games that I played in 2018. So they might not have necessarily come out in 2018, but I played them in 2018. There is a few in here that did come out in 2018, so there will be some similarities with my list that I'm sure you've seen in others, but I just wanted to try and make it a little bit different, a little bit unique, and maybe shed some light on some older games maybe people want to check out. So yeah, without any further ado, we'll get right into it. Anyone that knows me on Xbox or maybe even Twitter will know that since September, specifically September 4th last year, I haven't really played anything but this game. I would be lying to myself if I didn't put it in the list, and that game is Destiny 2, if you haven't guessed by the footage already. And this is the reason that I have skipped out on so many other incredible looking games that I should have played a lot more of, such as Spider-Man, Tomb Raider, Darksiders 3, Just Cause 4, and many more that I was super hyped for, and then the addiction got me and I just never got around to playing them. It was also the other reason I decided to change my list to how it is, because I didn't think it was fair to say, hey, these are the best ones of 2018 when I haven't played a lot of the ones I think look incredible. So this is strictly what I've played. This is what I played for the last 4 months, practically every day. I've, I've started to get a little bit bored of it now, but that's only because I've started to kind of, I don't know, run out of things that I want to do in the game. There's still loads there, I just don't really want to do it. I'm still looking forward to the upcoming content, such as the Black Armory, the Final Forge, which isn't out as of recording, but it will be by the time you guys are listening. The new exotic quest, the next season, etc. I'll be coming back for all of that. But anyway, the reason I got into this game isn't because it's a perfect game. It is far from it. There is copious amounts of niggling little bugs and glitches. But it's the gameplay loop is incredibly addictive, and just playing it in co-op as well as hanging out with my friends. Shout out to A True Legacy and Riot Control in particular for being my three-man fire team through most of it. It has been a blast just hanging out and playing with you guys. And yeah, that is honestly the only reason I got the DLC, is because Legacy basically told me I had to play it with him, because I told him, or I got him to play it with me initially last year. And I really liked the game back then, and I came back to it week after week to do Nightfalls and stuff, but I really wasn't interested in Forsaken at all. But he wanted to get the achievements done, so as soon as I put the game on his card, I came back to help him with it, and yeah, the rest is history. So, once I figured I'd get off once I was done with the achievements, I didn't, obviously, because I started setting little mini goals for myself, like, oh, I'll get all the exotics on my main, my hunter, then I could do this triumph, I could do that triumph, oh, there's this specific Nightfall, loot drops that I can go for. And recently, as of like last week, we started going for like really high score runs on Nightfall, which has been a lot of fun too. And that's all. I still haven't even played the latest raid, so getting 6 together for the raid is the hardest part of the game for us, but I'm still having a blast nonetheless. So yeah, that is why this game is number 7 on my list. So in at number 6 is a game, especially I think console gamers maybe don't know much about, because it is quite hard to sift through and filter through a lot of the indie games on the store. But this game actually did come out last year, back in May, and it is called Moonlighter. and I was not expecting a whole lot from the game, to be honest. I know previous member of Gamers Be Like Omega sent me a message like, "Oh hey, there's this game. I've heard it's kind of like Zelda. You know, do you want to check it out?" I'm like, so I'm always a little apprehensive when people make Zelda parallels, because Zelda is such a huge series for me, and there's some lofty expectations to put on any game. I just don't think that's fair, so I always try and keep my expectations somewhat tempered whenever I hear that. But yeah, when he told me that, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to check it out. And I actually did a quick look on the channel. I'll throw that up above somewhere if you guys want to check out some more. But yeah, what I got was actually a really, really cool, unique game. And I was pretty instantly hooked in the gameplay loop of it. It's not anything really like I've played before. There is, I guess, Zelda similarities in that there's dungeons and bosses of the dungeons, but not really. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a Zelda-like game at all, but anyway, you play as a shopkeeper, and you got to manage that shop and bring in money. However, to get that stock, you got to kill stuff in the dungeons, like the enemies and chests and stuff. You got to loot the place, and you'll get like resources and stuff that you can sell at your shop. And then you can use that money that you get to buy better equipment, so then you can get further and further into the dungeons and tackle the new dungeons and stuff like that. And the dungeons are made in such a way that you won't beat them first time through. They are randomly generated each time also. So what you end up doing is you go in, you kill as much as you can, you loot as much as you can. When you think kind of a risk-reward type of deal where do you want to try and go further or to risk it all, or do you want to just take what you got, get out and sell it and come back later? So you know, once you leave, you sell it, you buy your better gear, you go in, you get further, you eventually kill the boss and unlock a new dungeon. And while I didn't actually get to beating the game yet, I made it to the 3rd dungeon, and I believe there's 4 dungeons in total. I got sidetracked with some other games and I just haven't got back to it yet, but I do really want to. But yeah, the shop aspect of the game as well is not as simple as I've just made it sound. You don't just hit sell on everything and get your money. You set your prices for your items, and the customers then come in and decide if they're willing to pay that or not. Then you can judge by the reactions. There'll be a little bubble that pops up above their head, and you can tell whether they thought it was a crazy good bargain, in which case you could raise the price a little bit of the next time you sell that item, or if they might just like pick it up and get mad and leave. That's like, it's way too high. They might begrudgingly buy it, and then there's the sweet spot where they're like, yep, this is a perfect price, I'll give you that money. And there's benefits to selling stuff cheap. Customers become more frequent, I believe, from what I could tell. And more people come to your store, and if you sell it overpriced, less people come and they're less happy with you and all that kind of thing. So there's a very unique and interesting mechanic with that, and it is one that I don't think I've personally played with in a game before. I'm sure there is games with it, but having that mixed in with the dungeon element of actually farming to get your loot was a really cool and unique game, and one I highly recommend if you're into dungeon crawling and management. And since I even last played it, there's been a bunch of updates. This is another reason I want to get back to it. They've added stuff like New Game Plus, there's new room patterns to keep the randomly generated dungeons fresh, and I believe there's still more to come also, so I definitely recommend checking this game out, even if it's a little steep in price. I think it's $25, which is more than most indie games, but I highly recommend giving it a chance, even if you check out some videos, other videos around the interwebs, and see if it's a game you'd like. So in at number 5 we have Dragon Quest Builders. Now this is a game that technically didn't come out last year, but it also kind of did. In the West it came out back in October 2016 for PS4 and I believe PC, but it did just come out on the Switch in 2018. I only just recently got around to playing it. I was playing the PS4 version, so the version I was playing wasn't released last year. And man, I've been missing out, because It's a game that I saw before it was released. I was like, that looks cool, I gotta get it, and I just never got around to it. I love Minecraft, and the only real thing I didn't like about Minecraft was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do. Once I figured out what I wanted to do and build, I was set for hours and hours when I did it. And the lack of any real furniture to furnish my buildings and stuff was always a pet peeve of mine. I'd always just have these empty rooms with chests in them or something, and so they just didn't look very cool. And Dragon Quest Builders addresses both of those things for me. I mean, first off, there's an actual story to play through that unfolds in 4 pretty lengthy chapters. Each game is kind of self-contained, the story runs through it, but like the gameplay is like self-contained within each chapter, in that it forces you to start out fresh each time with new stuff to build and hunt for. And then there's NPCs that come to your town and they ask you to do stuff like build things or go out and get this item or resource or whatever. And the building can range from just like an item they want you to build or a whole room. You don't have a huge amount of space in the base, but you can do a lot with it. And it's just really cool having people telling me what to do. I guess I need that kind of structure. More than my creative side isn't as good as it should be, I suppose. And I really enjoyed the structure. By the end of the chapter, you got to fight off a boss that threatens the town too. So if your base isn't built, which mine usually weren't, I had a pretty leveled town by the end of it, so I ended up repairing everything. And there's also side quests as well out in the wild. You're not just like roaming around just hacking away at trees and monsters and stuff. There's NPCs out there that will ask you to do certain things, and there's no real way of knowing where they are. You just kind of find them, and it's always cool when you do find them. And yeah, and they'll be like, oh hey, can you bring me this? Or, I mean, the quests are pretty basic, but it was always cool, and they give you a cool reward usually. So I thought they were cool. And it's not all just quests. You're obviously given the freedom within the chapters to build the base up how you like. There'll be certain missions where they ask you to build certain rooms and stuff, but there's plenty of like leftover room to build what you want and have it how you like. And each base has a level that will increase, so the more rooms you build and the better you decorate them and that kind of thing, you'll level up your base. So that was pretty cool, having that kind of progression with your building. And yeah, the furniture, which I mentioned, that is severely lacking in Minecraft, which, you know, you got a bed and a chest, maybe a torch on the wall. Dragon Quest Builders has so much furniture. There's chairs and stools and tables and ornaments and paintings and I mean, I know Minecraft had paintings and some of the more decorative stuff, but and it's functional too. You can sit on the chairs, you can sleep in the beds. There's a wide variety of beds. And another small thing that was actually pretty huge for me was cladding. So if your building was just made out of dirt, which a lot of mine were initially, you could just go around with the cladding and it will just cover a section around your character in that, in whatever say it's brick cladding, it will become all brick. So it made it a lot easier than just knocking it all down and replacing it with brick. A lot cheaper too on the resources, so that was a really nice quality of life improvement over Minecraft that I really liked. There is a free build mode in the game that I honestly haven't played yet. I could not imagine how much time I would lose when I go in there and check it out, but just the 4 chapters on their own were amazing. The story was great, and in particular the soundtrack was a standout feature of this game for me. It's an incredible score, and one that I would put on the same level as the Zelda series, and I find myself stopping and just listening to it, which isn't something I do often in games at all. That is why it is number 5 on my list. So at number 4 we have a game that actually did come out last year, and it is called Minute. So again, especially console gamers, you might have missed out on this one because of me personally, I find it quite hard to find indie games on the store. I think there's a lot of kind of poor quality games on there, in my opinion, that kind of muddy the waters of trying to find the gems in them. So Minute was a game that I hadn't really heard about until a week or two before it came out, and I was kind of intrigued by it, the concept, and people said it was like Zelda, so again, much like Moonlighter. So yeah, much like Moonlighter, I tempered my expectations, and when it came out, I was actually awake at the hour it came out on the store on Xbox, and I didn't have any plans to buy it, and I just was scrolling through the store, like, oh, it's out, and it was a 100% pure impulse buy, and it is the best impulse buy I have ever made in my life. So while graphically it looks pretty basic, and it's, you know, like a Game Boy game, it's black and white and 4:3 ratio and aspect ratio and that kind of thing, the actual game is something truly unique. I mean, so the game tasks you with getting as far as you can with only a minute to live. So, but certain stuff will carry over between your lives, so each time you might get a little bit further. And there's a few little like beds, outpost type things scattered around, so if you get to one of those, you'll unlock a new respawn point. And it's incredibly well crafted, and it could have easily been so incredibly frustrating. But they managed to pull off the balance pretty perfectly, in my opinion. What I found was the deaths weren't annoying at all. They provided me with a new way to play and puzzle solve. There's little side missions you can go for, and there's plenty of like little nooks and crannies to explore. But obviously, with everything, everything is accessible within minute lives at a time. So it's not that long of a game. But everything's really well placed to provide the balance between challenging and fun. It wasn't frustrating at all for me, and I just had an absolute blast playing it. There is certain parallels to Zelda, I suppose, in that you'll find yourself going back and forth a little bit. It's the Legend of a Sword, that kind of thing, but honestly it is a really, really unique game, and I can't really describe it, because I can't tell you what it's like, because it's like nothing, to be honest. It's a really, really unique game, and I definitely recommend checking it out. If you get stuck, I'm going to put a shameless plug here, but if you do get stuck, I do have guides on the channel that will help you get through the game and get all the collectibles and achievements and that kind of thing. So check that out. But also, if you just want to check out the game in general, there's a full playthrough on there. You can skip through or watch in full and decide whether you want to play it. Definitely don't miss out on this one. So in at number 3 we have Okami. So as I made this list, I started to realize just how much games that resembled my childhood favorites, Zelda in particular, really make a game for me. I mean, I don't know what I can say other than I'm a sucker for nostalgia. But Okami is by far the best non-Zelda Zelda game. It originally came back out on the Wii, like 2006, maybe. I didn't pick it up until the beginning of last year on Xbox One in their Countdown to New Year's sale, or January sale, whatever it's called. And what I got was exactly that. It was a Zelda game. It's not like Zelda, it is Zelda. I mean, there's dungeons with new toys to acquire, there's towns full of people to appease, the story of a legend of fulfilling your destiny. I mean, it's all there. There was even a Zelda game where you played as a wolf, so, I mean, this one, you play as a wolf. So it's even got that parallel at this point. Instead of having a fairy, you know, like Ocarina of Time, you had Navi, you have this little bug following you around, whose name escapes me right now. I should have written it down. And they'll natter in your ear as you go along, and give you hints and tips and maybe annoy you a little bit. The similarities are nearly endless, and if this game bore the Zelda name, I don't think anyone would notice too much outside of maybe the art style. But even like Wind Waker took a dramatic change in art style, so maybe they wouldn't. And that art style is incredibly unique, and it's an art style that it's a graphical choice as well as a gameplay mechanic, which is something I don't think I've really seen in a game before. And it's this Japanese painting style that everything is portrayed in this style, but it's also, you have this brush that you use to paint symbols that will cast certain abilities and that kind of thing that you'll unlock as you go about your adventures. That was just really cool as well, and it was a week I lost back in February to this game, and it's one that stood out to me almost instantly when I was making this list. as one of the favorite games I played last year. And if you're into Zelda type games at all, I highly recommend checking this out because I do not think you'll be disappointed. Okay, so I've cheated a little bit with this entry at number 2, and I'm gonna put 3 Tony Hawk games here that I played last year, because I played them all back to back, and it was just a really fun summer for me when I did that. So I didn't really want to leave any one of them out. So I decided just to group all 3 of them together. There's American Wasteland, Project 8, and Proving Ground. So bear with me on that last one, please. But American Wasteland was one of my favorite 360 games from way back in the day. I played it when I think it was one of the first games I got on my 360, and it got me through some pretty tough times in my life. The last summer I just had this urge to replay it, so I did, but I didn't know what to play, and I just decided to pick it up and play it. Unfortunately, it's not backwards compatible, so I had to dust off the old 360. But yeah, and when I beat it, I still had the urge to play more, but I didn't want to replay it. So I ended up picking up Project 8, which is a game I had played in the past before, but I'd never fully beaten it. It was a game I made it to the Project 8, but I never made it to number 1, and I stuck with it long enough this time to kind of get better at the game, and I actually managed to pull off number 1. So in terms of like my personal achievements for 2018 in gaming, that is by far the best. Something I would have never dreamed of being able to do, because I just didn't think I'd ever be good enough at those games to pull that off. So when I actually hit that number 1 spot, it was a serious fist bump moment for me. Project 8, I guess, is the standout feature of the 3 because of that. And Proving Ground, while it wasn't as good, I still had a lot of fun playing it. And I think that's because of the open world setting of these games. It just makes it so easy just to get lost in them and just kind of... A lot of times I wasn't even really doing missions, I was just pulling off combos and just skating around the world and just messing around basically, and it was just super relaxing. Project 8 in particular, again, I found myself losing track of time and just being completely relaxed while playing it. There was definitely some palm sweating moments, especially that final mission to attain number 1, and some other ones along the way that were pretty stressful, but overall it was a great game to just unwind with and kind of turn my brain off. And I think the reason I prefer American Wasteland and Project 8 over Proving Ground was the vibrancy of them. Everything just felt so happy and peaceful and almost carefree, whereas Proving Ground decided to take the gritty route and make everything 50 Shades of Grey. Well, not that kind of 50 Shades of Grey, but yeah, I think that's the reason I didn't like it as much. And I really hope if we get a new Tony Hawk game, we get an open world one like American Wasteland or Project 8 with a lot of colour, a lot of goofiness, a lot of like humour in it, just that kind of bright and colourful. I don't know how to explain it. Hopefully you guys know what I'm saying, but that is why I really like these games. I mean, all 3 of them were incredibly rewarding. Pulling off crazy combos, beating some of the tougher missions were all good moments for me. But Project 8 is definitely the highlight of the 3, just because I can't believe I managed to pull that off. I did not think I'd ever be good enough, and I did it. That is why it is one of my highlights of 2018. So here we are, number 1. When I said about making this list, the other 6 were the hard part for me. Number 1 was no question. It wasn't hard to pick at all. I mean, I went back at my list of games that I played to see if maybe I'd forgotten something, but nope. This was the best game I played last year by far, and that's not saying the other 6 were bad, that's just saying how good this one was. It is such an incredible game. The gameplay felt fluid and fresh. The story was full of twists and turns. The soundtrack was like pitch perfect. The graphics were stunning. Add in that kind of single camera shot that they did with the game where there was no cuts. And man, it was it's a game that I haven't felt joy from a game like on this level in a long time. You know, whenever this generation ends and I'm making a video for my game of the generation, I would be shocked if this game isn't in there. If it isn't, then oh my god, we've got some incredible games coming out in the next few years. And I don't want to spoil this game too much for people that maybe haven't got it yet, because it is really a game that to be experienced, especially with the plot. So I don't want to talk about that too much, but just the gameplay of it too was great. There was certain Metroidvania to it, where there's certain paths being unlocked when you get new abilities. The side quests were all really interesting too, and they weren't just side quests for the sake of being side quests like you get in a lot of games where it's just like, oh, we'll just throw them in to add hours of gameplay to the time, but it's just busy work. No, they actually had lore behind them and story, and they actually felt different. Like, in particular, the quest to take on and rescue the Valkyries, where you had to fight them all. They were like top endgame fights. They're really rewarding to pull off when you finally beat them, and it was probably the highlight of the side quest for me. But even just wandering around, especially in the boat in the kind of hub area, was just amazing, because it wasn't just boring like, oh, hurry up and get A to B. Stories were being told and conversations were being had between the characters in the boat, to the point where if I was getting close to my destination and they hadn't finished, I'd stop and just wait for them to finish to hear what they were saying. I know I said I didn't want to spoil the story too much. Hopefully this isn't too far of a spoiler for anybody, but I guess I'll throw a spoiler warning in now just in case. It sets up a few things for a possible sequel, and I for one cannot wait to see that. I really hope we get it. But yeah, and the combat was a joy to play with too. It was so much fun pulling off some crazy combos by throwing the axe. There's a weapon later on in the game that I won't mention at all the name of it, but again, it was incredibly fun. And it came at the perfect time where you're just getting to the point where the Leviathan axe is getting, maybe I'm getting like too used to it and it's becoming stale. I mean, it didn't get to that point, but it was just thinking about it, and then boom, here's a new weapon to play with, and it was just incredible. And then being able to mix between the two and everything, it was just so much fun. And that is why it is my game of the year 2018 of the games that I played. Like I said before, these games weren't the ones necessarily came out last year, but the ones I played this year. And but this one did come out in 2018, and it was just amazing.
I can't.
So there we have it. That is my 7 favorite games that I played in 2018. Like I said, hopefully it was a little bit different from what you guys have probably seen hundreds of videos for at this point. Let me know in the comments what the favorite games that you played last year were, old or new. I just love hearing what games. There's some old games that people mention and I'm like, I've never heard of that, and I'll end up playing it and being like, wow, why have I never heard of that? So make sure definitely let me know what games you've been playing last year. What was your favorites? I do have 3 honorable mentions I want to make at the end here that didn't quite make the list. That is the Z-Axis or the Z-Axis. It's a little indie puzzle game that I had a blast playing through. It's similar, think of a 2D Portal game, and you won't be far off from what this game is, but it is really unique in itself with the rotation mechanics and that kind of thing. Definitely recommend checking that out if you're into those kind of puzzle games. Another one was Axiom Verge, which again didn't come out last year, but I played it last year, and it was, if you like Super Metroid or any Metroidvania games like that and you haven't played it, you really need to check it out. It is a really good Metroidvania game. The last one is probably one that's gonna kill my subscriber count right now, but I had a lot of fun with it. It took up a month or 2 of my life. I was addicted to it, much like I was Destiny for a while, and I had a blast playing with it. I met some great people playing it, and that was Metal Gear Survive. People like to give it shit because it's Konami, but if you just take the politics aside, it is a really fun survival game, and I've seen a lot of people say, oh, all you do is put down a fence and poke them with a stick. That's true for maybe the first hour. It'll eventually get to a point where that's just not going to fly anymore, and you're going to have to upgrade your arsenal and your tactics to even make it anywhere near the end of the game, and throughout the co-op kind of tower defense mode that's in the game. But anyway, but yeah, that is it for this video. Make sure to give me the thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe for more content, hit the bell if you want to know when that content goes live, and again, make sure to let me know in the comments below what were your favorite games of 2018, and I'll see you next time.